Welcome into the sacred space of three spiritual besties. Grab a seat and join us for raw and unfiltered conscious conversations.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episodes of Conscious Conversations, where you are going to meet your three hosts, Ashley,
Nicole, and Brittany.
And to begin, this is Ashley. A lot of you may know me as Ashley Star. I am somewhat of I would consider myself kind of like a witch / spiritualist / kind of human channeler psychic energy. I don't really fall in the label very well, but within this space, my intention is to really kind of come to a place of sharing my perspective within discernment of the navigating of kind of the day-to-day energy, but also how the collective influences that, as well as my own spiritual journey. So when it comes to my energy and day to day, I think it's really important to wake up on a certain energetic kind of alignment and timeline. So within that frequency, I like to always intend that I'm aligned to my highest timeline within that energy. And then throughout the day, I will do kind of some spiritual practices. Most of it is going to be directed with dragons, and that is something that I work with very often within my practice, so they'll come up a lot within this podcast. When it comes to my connection with them, I do kind of see them not necessarily as an external energy, but more of an energy within me, which I think is kind of fascinating. I work with other deities and energies of that sort, but the dragons are really kind of like a piece of me, which I think is a good thing to know about kind of certain energies that you guys might be experiencing. You might not feel them outside of you. You might kind of feel them inside of you, which is kind of bizarre when you think about it. But if you're very clairsentient, which is the energy of clear feeling, like you can feel energies, you might feel your guides or your energetic team like within your space. So throughout my day, that's a lot of what I'm encountering is those clairsentient feelings as well as my intuition. But I'm not just a psychic and a spiritualist. I have a partner. I have 5 animals, which includes 2 cats and 3 dogs. They make my life very chaotic, but also very loving and interesting. I enjoy going to bingo. I enjoy going to the beach as long as it's not too sunny because I get really red and I burn like a lobster. I really enjoy making my home a nice, safe, sacred space, and energetically feeling aligned within that is really important for me. And within my intentions of collective energy, I do energy updates frequently throughout other social medias, but within this space, I'm not that version of self. I'm the version of self that's coming through with that knowledge, but also vulnerability of the human side of myself, like really getting to know the Ashley aspect of Ashley Star, not just the Ashley Star aspect of Ashley. So that's why I'm really excited to be in this space with you guys and be able to show this new vulnerable kind of side of me that is able to collaborate with these other 2 beautiful human beings and also get into some really deep rooted conversations around day-to-day life, but also really cool things around what it's like to be able to talk to dragons and demons and angels, because that's also really cool. So I appreciate you listening to my intro, and I'm going to pass it over to one of my other co-hosts.
I'm Nicole, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to do this with you guys, to explore this other side of myself and to share it with the listeners, with my friends. I should start off, I am a mom and I'm a wife, and these things are extremely important to me. They have helped me grow in a way that I never thought imaginable and see things in myself that are good and that also needed to be healed. And I am very, very, very excited to share these experiences and be vulnerable and honest, and in some cases really raw about what I feel and how you may also relate and experience them. some fun things about me. I enjoy reading and writing, and one of my favorite hobbies is organizing. And as far as spirituality goes for me, it is something that evolves every day. It is something that I can't say that I work with this over that. It is very open, and I feel like I learn something new every single day. And for this podcast, I truly hope to just share that, to help people open up a little bit more, or to not know that to know that they're not alone in what they are also experiencing in their lives. So that's a little bit about me. If I wanted to share one random goal to make it a little fun that I have for myself personally, is that I want to learn Korean. So I think that that's super fun. And, if I'd love to hear if you guys have a random goal for yourself in your life. And I'm going to pass it on to Brittany.
Hello, friends. I'm Brittany. I am a Southern California native. I am a monster of one beautiful human. I would consider myself in the spiritual aspect to be a few things. Like Ash, I do have a hard time really throwing labels out there, but if I were to, I would say first and foremost, I'm a clairvoyant. I lean heavily into the intuitive aspects of my empathic abilities. I am also a seer, which has kind of been really interesting to kind of understand and step into that aspect of my abilities as well. And above all, if I am anything, I am a Halloween extremist. I am the biggest enthusiast for everything and all things Halloween. So um, my spiritual path has been one of, I guess, what you could consider really like an unpaved path. Not too much of a, you know what? I'll change that too. It's kind of just like a dumpster fire, and if you imagine that dumpster fire floating down a river of whatever you want to say, we there's it's hard for me to kind of talk about my spirituality without talking about what I do. I work heavy within the shadow self. And shadow work to me is something that has really made me who I am today. It's really pivoted everything in my life and put me on a path of greater understanding of self, more compassion for myself, more compassion for humanity. And with that, I do also work closely with some aspects of the infernal divine, which for some can be a little bit intimidating. But my quest here is to kind of open some minds about the different paths that people choose within spirituality, because there is no one size fits all when it comes to that. And I think the idea of sharing this podcast with I would consider the two of these lovely ladies my spiritual besties. The idea is to kind of create a community where we can all grow together, where we could really understand and accept other perspectives going forward. I think one of the bigger beliefs I have right now is this change that we are seeing in the world and in the universe, and that carries all the things that carry out into the universe start within us. And so that is my hope for our podcast. I started my spiritual journey within sobriety, and that is another big aspect of myself that I hold a lot of pride within, is being sober now for 5 years. And my hope there is also that people who are just newly sober or are getting sober or wish to be sober, my hope is to kind of help inspire somebody to just take things day to day and explain my journey, and hopefully somebody can really connect through that, and hopefully it's the next step in their life that can really help them continue on a path of enlightenment.
Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you guys for being here. I think it's a little important to also talk about how we all met, right? Because I live in Florida, Brittany's in California, and Ash is in Vermont. And so we're kind of on all different sides of the country here. And so we actually met through social media, and it was Ashley who brought us together. And it's definitely been interesting how we got here.
Do we say the dreaded word? Do we say TikTok?
Yeah,
Do
why
we?
not? Why not? yeah, we met through TikTok, and it's been fun. It's been
Purposeful.
yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think when, we came together through Ash has her business there and she does her lives, and she shares a lot of insight. And I think between the three of us, we really created a space of love and acceptance and understanding where we all felt where when we came to each other, we weren't being judged. We were just being supported. It took us a little while to kind of get here, right? We had to weed through a few things together, but we did it, and here we are, and we're sharing. And um, I think it's beautiful, this little tripod of spiritual women that we've created. And I'm really happy and grateful for you, Ash, for bringing us together. Because truly, if it wasn't for you and having the courage to put yourself out there on social media and expanding within yourself to allow us to come along the journey, we wouldn't be here today. So,
Well, thanks you guys. I really found a profound sense of comfort in my, I would say, kind of diverse perspective of reality within your guys's also diverse perspectives, even though they're not always the same. The comfort of acknowledgement and not just dismissiveness was what really drew me to your energies, and thus created this space for us to also offer that in a sense of community to others. Because when it comes to having an opinion and having it be different within spirituality, sometimes that's very taboo. people
yes.
people really enjoy a very cut and straight and narrow, do X, Y, and Z to get to A, B, and C, and it just does not necessarily always align in that way. And that's kind of what triggered my spirituality too, to be honest. Because just a quick little backtrack, I just want to add this in real quick. I used to be in mental health care and be a case manager for mentally ill adults. And then within that, I went through my own kind of dark night of the soul. And essentially, my perspective of a lot of things crumbled within a week's time. It was really rapid. And I went to social media to try and find community and comfort. And that was when TikTok was kind of getting bigger. And I was like, I'm going to just start talking on here and see what happens. And then I've been on there for the past 4 years and have really grown and built Ashley Star to a place that I'm really proud of. But there is, Ashley is the creator of that Ashley Star. So you guys see that aspect of me a lot within the social media and the community. And then Brittany and Nicole get to see Ashley, maybe even more than Ashley Star. So that's why, this space is so important for me to be able to show, like, I am very tuned in, but I'm also a human and I have a life stuff that happens, and having a support system is so important for that. And then within this space, the amount that the two of you were able to honor that within me, and the shifts that were needed for me to feel aligned and purposeful and comfortable was, what really allowed me to be open and connect with the two of you. And that's why I'm so excited to have this space with the two of you, because the conversations we have are immensely expansive. I'm so excited for people to be able to hear them too.
Yes, I agree. I would say that the conversations between the three of us are, Ash describes it as expansive. I say they're wild. I think that we we all have really cool practices, and I love how the three of us, we are all so balanced within each other as well too. And so that's something that's really important for me in my friendships with you guys, is kind of being able to turn to you and getting more insight onto what life looks like, not just life, but spirituality, and having you guys as my, people to turn to when I feel crazy. Because let's be honest, a lot of spirituality, you have to doubt yourself, because we live in a society that tells us you're not allowed to think outside the box, right? So as we're breaking outside of these walls that confine us, like you have to find community. And I'm so grateful that I found it within you too. And you definitely helped me to contain the chaos that is my life. So my wish for people too tuning in is that, within you see the friendship that we share, and you're able to expand your life in a way that we have, and find community within this space as well, because it's out there. It's a little bit harder to find, but it is possible. And, we are a living example of it.
Yeah, yeah. I also feel like, it's important to note, like a lot of times, you're going through this transformation basically of yourself as we progress in life. And it sometimes it can just feel so lonely. But we're like
Yes.
all alone separate, right? And when you find people who are open, who are supportive, who don't judge, it helps ease the loneliness of expansion, of stepping into who we are. And hopefully over time we won't all just be alone together. We'll
Yes.
just be together.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Beautifully said.
I think that's such an interesting concept in the conceptualization of like collective consciousness in a way. You can build your own little mini collective, right? They call that kind of like soul family. You might hear that as, or like your even physical family is a bit little collective, and your energy affects theirs, and vice versa. So that's why it's so important to feel aligned and balanced and respected within those spaces. And that's not always able to be the case. So that's why a lot of the times friends or spiritual family is chosen family, because their energy that you're able to see, wow, this energy really fits in my reality. And then they can help you navigate the other little collectives that you're a part of that you might not necessarily have a choice within, because we all know families can be a little wild sometimes. And then just being in our society that we're in is relatively wild in its own. So if this podcast is something that just gives you peace of mind that like you're not alone, that is amazing. And we're hoping that you have other people in your reality that provide that for you too. But in this space, this is a safe space. This is a space where we're going to be sharing, a lot of these different topics. And it's also a space where you're able to leave comments in places, and we'll talk about different topics you guys bring in. We are the hosts, but we're kind of collaborating within certain aspects of the collective of what we bring into this space. And I think that's also cool within all of us is our different perspectives of different questions. So with that, I did kind of have a question for the two of you. Within your spiritual journey, what was the one event that kind of comes to mind, if you're willing to share, that let you know that you were someone who was essentially spiritually aligned, or you could call that even like gifted?
That's a loaded question. For myself, I spoke about it a little bit, but my sobriety was the thing that really allowed me to understand myself on a different level, where, I was using alcohol as a way of muting all of what I now know as my abilities. So I was using alcohol to kind of shut all of those down. So when I got sober, I tried to get sober twice, and first time I clearly failed, but also was a champ at coming back. So let's give credit where credit's due, right? Um, the first time I got sober, I remember I did intuitively start doing a lot of things, like meditation was number one. And at that version of myself, and within that version of myself, meditation was still that quiet the mind, nothing's supposed to be going on. You should just be able to focus on the silence. I didn't understand what meditation actually is, but through a little bit of practice and breath work there, I remember sitting in this meditation, and I was seeing like all these shapes and all these colors and all these like I don't know, just like a lot of different types of things that wasn't familiar to me, but they hit home. And I didn't know that it was actually sacred geometry was what I was seeing within my mind's eye. And then I remember being like, at the end of my meditation, like coming back to self and being like, okay, if I truly experience this, please allow me to see a sign. And that again was like an intuitive thing, right? And I opened my eyes, and I was laying on my couch in my living room. My daughter was at school. And I opened my eyes and there was a projected rainbow on the ceiling, and there was nothing in that room that should have had a rainbow, being projected onto the roof. And so that was something that really, really stuck with me. So, shortly after that, I fell back, fell off the wagon again. But then shortly again after that, I became sober, and I became sober because of actually it was the anniversary of my father's death, and I got a mediumship reading from a medium in New York. And she told me, she's like, you could do what I do. And I was like, no, you're crazy. What? But she also told me a couple other things, like if I don't knock it off, my dad came through and he was like, if you don't knock it off, you're going to end up in jail. And I was like, I don't belong there. No, thank you. So and from that moment on, I was sober, and then going, forward into my spirituality and stuff. That was definitely the most pivotal moment and I remember I can still see all the sacred geometry that I was seeing, and the rainbow. It was just really amazing. It was so amazing to actually step into those feelings again. It was hard. Don't get me wrong. Hard. Sobriety is hard, but it was pretty amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh my God,
I actually
yes.
didn't know a good portion of that, to be quite
Yeah.
honest with you. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And my intention with that question for each of you, and I'll answer it as well, is for people who might be where you started right now, right? And like listening to what you're sharing and being like, okay, within that space, there is so much potential from there. Usually there is a catalytic event that triggers spiritual awakenings. So for me, that catalytic event was actually the pandemic. And I giggle at it now because I know that was the case for so many people.
Yeah.
But just like looking back, that was a rather traumatic time. And I was laid off. I was fitting people for tuxedos at the time because I needed a break from the heaviness of human services work. And within that space, I just had to sit with myself. I had nothing to distract myself other than social media. Social media was also depressing. I felt like everybody was depressed. I was beginning to be depressed. And then I started like feeling things. And I'm like, what am I actually feeling? And during that time, I was heavily utilizing cannabis. And I do think that was an activating factor for me. It's not something I necessarily recommend, but I do think it can be a tool to be used, but it's not needed. I've been sober from everything for 3 years now, but that was definitely something that I feel helped me tune in and feel at the beginning within meditation and within all the cool colors and everything of that sort. It was kind of like a little ritual I would do with myself. There's a lot of rituals you can do, and that was something I utilized at the beginning of my journey. And I just, within the pandemic, had nothing else to do, so I meditated for hours and hours and hours. And that I remember looking at my husband and being like, I think I'm a witch. And he's like, what are you talking about? Because I never had much of that in my life prior to this. I was a very night and day spiritualist. I used to consider myself an atheist and not believe in anything energy, truly. So it's very fascinating to me that I'm in this space now. And the trigger was the pandemic, but I also was able to grow because of the work I put in through meditation. And I love that Brittany also mentioned that meditation was a big part of their journey and expansion, because that can be really important for people. So my catalyst was the pandemic and just having the time to indulge and see kind of what my energy was without any distractions.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. For me, I think that I remember back to being a kid basically and having spiritual gifts. But as you get older, you don't understand them. You kind of tune them all out, for fear or for judgment or, for various different reasons. But I think the main event that started me opening myself up a little bit more was becoming a mom. Once I became a mom, I was also stay at home, and you start just looking at life differently. And then on top of it, I would see I would see qualities in my son where I'm like, huh, did he get that from me? Why do I do that? So I would start questioning my own behaviors, my own thought patterns that I was seeing reflected in my child. And it also then opened me up to my other relationships. You know, how do I interact with my partner? How do I interact with my parents? And it just goes, there's layer after layer after layer. And the more layers I go into, the more I start to see myself. And it's like the most beautiful, hard, emotional roller coaster you could ever possibly go on, but it's always worth it. It's always, always, always worth it.
Yeah.
That's
That's
so
beautiful,
profound.
Nicole. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what you said, where there's like so many layers, there's so many different layers. So when I talk about shadow work, this is what I'm talking about. It's like bringing the subconscious into the conscious mind. And it's just that it's so beautiful, but it is so hard sometimes, right? And I truly am, I truly do believe that the hardest thing that you could do is face yourself, and allowing those things, allowing yourself to lose the judgment of self is, oh my gosh, everything in you fights it, right? And so being a mom or being a wife or being all those things, like they really do help kind of contribute to these aspects of self that are so important. And it's really cool because these moments where you reflect upon being a mom or being a partner or being a wife or being whoever you are, um, we don't do them because of that. We do them for ourselves, but this is kind of what also it reaches those aspects of ourselves and the aspects of the world around us, where we get to work on ourselves, and then it helps our partners, it helps our family members. And I know just from like our conversations that we've all had, like I definitely know that it has affected the people in our lives that way. So that's something that's really profound and beautiful within itself as well. So this spiritual journey is not, it starts with self, but it expands beyond that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
How fun. We're so fun. Look at us. Look at
Look at
us
us.
just doing things. No.
I think that knowing where we each started is going to give so much insight for our listeners into, point A to point B can have so much in between. And you're saying our point B now, and that's of course going to shift even months to come. But the most important thing I say in my perspective is just trusting the journey. I would say you are going to be faced with so much doubt about self, about your path, about others, needing a bigger purpose, needing some sort of validating aspect. You're not always going to get that. But the biggest thing to know is that you have yourself. You have your own back 100%. And that's actually an affirmation when I think about it. I'm interested to see how that might come into play in future episodes or future time. But having your own back 100% is going to get you so much further than just constant effort without direction.
That's great advice. Nicole, do you have any advice you want to offer? That was really great advice.
Yeah, it was really great.
You want to follow that one up?
Yeah. I don't really have advice, but I saw something online this weekend that I really, really wanted to share in today's episode. And it is, if you don't know what to pursue in life right now, pursue yourself. Pursue becoming the healthiest, happiest, most healed, most present, most confident version of yourself. And that is what I truly hope for everyone to step into themselves and then accept themselves, love themselves, trust themselves, be with themselves.
I love that so much. If you heard a gasp or a gusp, that was me. Because I was like, oh my gosh, that hit me right in the heart. I was like, wow. Can you read it again? I just need to recalibrate back into that.
If you don't know what to pursue in life right now, pursue yourself. Pursue becoming the healthiest, happiest, most healed, most present, most confident version of yourself.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. At the end of the day, how you perceive the world is through yourself and your perspective. And if you're constantly fighting that, that's going to create cycles that are causing constant internal conflict and battles and sabotage. And if you feel like you're in a cycle like that right now, been there, Still go there sometimes. You're not alone. We can get through this together. And just the first thing in that is identifying why. Why are you there? Is it programming? Is it healing? Is it beneficial to you somehow? What is that space offering you? Because you're there for some reason. Is it comfort? And then once you identify that, work through creating a new space that's outside of that energy that you can then shift yourself into. Because if you don't know where to go, you don't know where to shift, you might not have created that space yet.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really excited for like in our future episodes to talk a lot about like our cycles and where to start, you know, how to really start acknowledging, breaking, healing, whatever it may be. But yeah, to really kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it all.
I'll offer my little bit of advice to everyone, and it's something that I hold really dear to myself, which is I try and do my best. Ash and Nicole kind of touched on it already, but I do my best not to judge myself, and I accept that where I am today, whether I am perceived as failing for the day or I'm succeeding within the day, I try to just understand the dualistic aspect of life. It's okay for me to be an asshole one day, and it's okay for me to be the nicest person you've ever met the next day. All of those things are still part of self, and I accept all versions of me. And that helps me to move through the emotions of life a lot easier. So it's, something that that I would like to offer others and those who could really, judging yourself is we're programmed to compare, right? And so allowing yourself to let go of those comparisons and just moving and accepting and learning that who you are today in this moment, in this second, is exactly who and where you should be at all times. And that also gives me an excuse for when I'm not so kind to maybe my partner. I'm like, oops. It helps me move through those emotions. So really, it's just, for my own benefit.
If you think about the concept that's like, okay, comparison's the thief of joy. But what if you're consistently comparing yourself to where you expect yourself to be? Then that's a cycle in itself too. So be mindful of that as well. It's the judgment is the comparison of who, potentially even you to you. It might not be you to another. In these podcasts, we're going to really be analyzing ourselves because we're really good at that. Three of us. So we're going to be saying like, this is how we see it. This is how we move through it. And then if you see that in yourself, this is how we got through that. That's why I love and appreciate all of our perspectives so much, because we've gotten through some very intense stuff, both spiritually and physically. And, it comes from a place of experience within these, but also a place of love and that frequency that we are emitting, through our voices and through the frequency of this podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
We want to do an affirmation.
Yes, we will pull an affirmation. Let's see
what we're going to get a little affirmation to ponder between now and our next episode. We love affirmations, all of us. So you might get like a few throughout the episode, like the ones we dropped prior to.
Okay. All right. I send a prayer of love to all beings in need of a miracle.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that intention of, you have the ability to send any frequency anywhere. So be mindful of that, because that can be both positive or negative. Mm-hmm. And then sending that to beings that are in need of love. Hopefully you send that to yourself too, if you feel like you need it.
Yeah. And don't forget the universe is a mirror. And so whatever you're putting out is what's going to be projected back at you. So be mindful in your thoughts and be mindful within your words. Send love as often as you can, as much as you can, because at the end of the day, that's what we all need, right? Support, love, friendship,
kindness, compassion,
and just some really strong coffee. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode and expanding within conscious conversations. We now close this sacred space with love and gratitude. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected.